All right. This is your host of the most of the time here in Sunnyside, Dubai. I have a special friend, Reuben Yap. He is the project steward slash co-founder of FIRO protocol. The last time I talked to him was in 2022. Wow, time flies pretty fast. But I'm glad, I always see him like in the Pursuit of Privacy Telegram group, and just wanted to bring him in on the show to continue the conversation of privacy and also some recent updates, some recent developments in terms of the. I'm sure the audience would know about Tornado Cash. Recently, we had some of our friends from Samurai Wallet. They got arrested. Roger also got arrested in Spain, the same place where John McAfee was arrested and supposedly suicided too. So same jail. So which is really, I would say, definitely is controversial. It is also for many of our friends who are in the space for a while would find it quite disturbing. But that's the reason why I personally believe that privacy is important. Before we get into the nitty gritty, just for the folks who are new, I would love for you to give a little intro about yourself, Reuben.
I'm Reuben. I'm the project steward of FIRO, which was formerly known as Zcoin, which launched in 2016. I think we've been at the forefront of, I would say, privacy protocol development. So we don't just use other people's privacy protocol. We've been developing some of the most important privacy protocols in use in blockchain at the moment. And yeah, I've been in crypto since I think 2012, 2013. Not the total OG, but it was in response to, because I was back in like 2007, I was running a VPN service and I was cut off from so many different financial providers because they said, oh, why are you doing VPN services? This must be dodgy and stuff. And I felt really victimized and I really felt powerless and not in control of my money, especially when I was not doing anything illegal, right? And then today VPNs are just so commonplace. You see it everywhere. So that's how I got into crypto. I actually come from a legal background. I was a lawyer for 10 years before going into Zcoin or FIRO since then. So yeah, but that's like basically us in a nutshell.
Yeah, no, but that is interesting because I do remember back in the days VPNs was considered like a no, but now it's part of your personal security, your corporate security, like in companies and stuff. Like they make you use a VPN. It is interesting to see that shift change. But I'm hoping, Reuben, do you hope that privacy would be normal for us?
Sorry, the question was, do you hope that privacy would be what?
Would be normal, would be considered normal as part of our daily life.
The thing was, privacy used to be normal, like before the digital age. And in this particular case, we are talking about a very specific kind of privacy, which is financial privacy, right? Privacy of money is not just financial privacy, but privacy of money. Obviously, back then when we were writing like handwritten letters, it wasn't really much of a problem because like it was just not scalable to intercept everyone's mail and open it up. But obviously when with the digital age and it just became a lot easier, especially when early on people were not sending encrypted emails, everything was just in the open and all these 3-letter agencies can just sit there and intercept everybody's stuff, right? So obviously we've gotten better there in the sense that now end-to-end encryption is being normalized, it's being back in, but it was a battle that we had to fight for. And we are still fighting for it. Like in the UK, I think just in the past 1 year or so, they tried to ban all end-to-end of messages because they were saying that, oh, this thing could be used by terrorists and they wanted a backdoor, but luckily the UK isn't as powerful as it used to be, and Apple and Google and a bunch of other big tech companies were saying, if you're doing that, UK is not going to get iMessage at all. So there was that strong kickback. And so I think in terms of messaging, in terms of communication privacy, that has improved. Obviously, there are still ways that this can be improved further. But when it comes to financial privacy, this is something that is, I would say, an ongoing battle that I would say the outcome isn't completely clear. But it is something that money is being weaponized. We've seen how
100%.
And we're not just talking about like between countries where, I don't like this country, I impose sanctions, use the power of the US dollar and trade and all of that. Okay. Or saying that, I don't support this tyrannical government, don't allow the Venezuelan government access to their own gold reserves in the UK. Things like that. So money is being weaponized. But this, I would say, this kind of control is being extended between the state and the citizens as well, where things like the central bank digital currencies, the CBDCs are being considered, and more you take a look, cash is dying, right? Like physical cash,
yeah.
even in Malaysia, no cash, only use the apps, and which is something that's controlled by the state government. And next year, our government has something e-invoicing, which is, I understand, is also being implemented in Europe, where every single transaction, no matter how small it is, that means I'm buying a cup of coffee, I'm buying some food in the hawker store, it's going to be communicated directly with the Inland Revenue Board or the tax authorities in this case, which to me is crazy, right? Like, even if I pay my taxes, I don't think that's right for every single transaction to go to the tax authorities. That's like a huge with like surveillance thing, and this is from a government that has leaked all our data of its citizens multiple times. So yeah.
Damn. Man, yeah, please continue. Sorry, I'm just like shocked actually.
Yes, so when seeing this, even like just recently I saw some like the EU when they were talking about the CBDCs. Yeah, privacy is paramount and but then we need this backdoor for law enforcement. I'm like, okay. We know how law enforcement and protecting children and fighting against terrorists has often been used as an excuse to surveil on everybody with very little oversight. And I feel like that's a very slippery slope. And there is a war against privacy, especially privacy coins. We've seen the new market and crypto assets regulation called MiCA, which explicitly says a currency with inbuilt features cannot be traded unless the centralized exchange knows the users and can see its transaction history, right? So we'll probably talk a little bit about that and how we interpreted that and how we managed to survive a listing because of these new regulations. So all these very, I would say, targeted things on privacy coins that, I don't know, there is very little evidence that privacy coins are being used in huge scale. Obviously, you have the small scale ransomware. Obviously, some terrorists use it in very small scale. But let's face it, the terrorists, the drug, what do you call it, the distributors, the cartels, they're also using USDT. They're also using regular cash. And it's strange how they focus on privacy coins and banning them from centralized exchanges without realizing they're actually making their life tougher, because at least when you have privacy coins on the centralized exchange, you can go to the centralized exchange and say, hey, who's this person? Give me some data. This thing got KYC, right? But now if you're pushing privacy coins off centralized exchanges and into DEXs, then where is your data point, right? Then it becomes a lot more trickier to do that. So yeah, it is an ongoing battle, one that I'm hopeful, but at the same time, the lobbying group, and we saw the arrest with Samurai Wallet. The Samurai Wallet was like the warning shot, but the Tornado Cash verdict was much more scary because it didn't seem he removed control from the smart contract and all of that. So yeah, before I go on the monologue, I'll let you guide the conversation.
No, but because I do recall, because the Tornado Cash thing was quite a shocker. But because at that time I didn't really, I guess, understand the gravity of the situation, because at that time I wasn't that big into Ethereum and stuff. But now I'll have an appreciation of Ethereum because it has opened up new market opportunities and stuff, and also in terms of adoption, I think Pacific has done a pretty great job. But I would love for you to dive deeper into the Samurai Wallet, because I have major respect for these guys. They are providing like an incredible service for the coin space or the BTC space, because normally I don't really take some of the BTC maximalists seriously, but when it comes to the Samurai guys, because I love what they're doing, and in terms of privacy, I think it is so needed. And to see these guys get arrested and stuff, I think to me it was a shocker. But just share to the audience about the gravity of the situation with the Samurai Wallet.
Sure. So the Samurai Wallet, okay, let's just talk about the facts first, right? So Samurai Wallet was, I guess, the premier, it's like the go-to solution for privacy, where it's advanced version of CoinJoin. It's not just CoinJoin anymore, some Whirlpool stuff. And it's non-custodial. That means Samurai developers do not hold your funds. It's non-custodial. But the infrastructure is being hosted by Samurai Wallet, and they earn fees directly from whenever you use that service. And because of that, because of these 2 second points, which was you are running the infrastructure and you are earning direct fees from people mixing or anonymizing funds through you are, the argument that the government was making was that you were facilitating money laundering. And this is in the sense that because previously it was taught by many lawyers that you would need the element element of custody, right? That means you need to hold the customer funds to be in charge of them, right? If you just hosted the infrastructure and you just went through. But I guess the government's now taking a wider definition, and it's also understandable, saying that even though the funds were not in your custody, you really just host this infrastructure and you earn fees from it. So how are you not facilitating money laundering? So I think the case is still ongoing. So we'll see how that pans out. But another I would say, a worrying thing, which was a known problem all along. So Samurai Wallet had a very famous public spat with the guys at Wasabi Wallet, which I think was run by the ZK Snacks company. And Wasabi was a bit more scared, and they tried, prior to the Samurai arrest, they were working with chain analysis companies to try to catch tainted coins. But their infrastructure was a bit different in the sense that Samurai still had your XPub, so they could still see how there's a huge leak of privacy. And now if the government goes to them and gets that information, then what's the value of your mixing, right? That's a big question mark there. If I'm not mistaken, Wasabi Wallet doesn't use that type of infrastructure. They partnered with KYC providers, not KYC, like chain analysis providers. So Samurai was like crapping on them and stuff like that. But even then, when the Samurai Wallet arrest came about, the ZK Snacks guys, even with them working with chain analysis and all of that, they decided to shutter their services as well, which also then led to other services like local Monero also shutting down, because not because the government shut them down, they just didn't want to go to jail. So a lot of these people just cut off their service, which is a shame, but definitely I understand. I respect what they were trying to do, but I wouldn't paint the Samurai guys like they did a good service. They probably had the heart in the right place. But I know, what were you thinking when you were still holding all the XPubs, right? Like, how did you not realize that this was going to be an effective honeypot, and yet still want to crap on the competition and say, oh, you're a sellout for using chain, for partnering with a chain analysis company. So while I would say together with Samurai Wallet in the sense that I feel that they should be right to host privacy infrastructure, mixing infrastructure and all of that, I wouldn't say they aren't the best. From the prosecutor's point of view, they are probably one of the better people to go after, because they are like obviously anti-government, obviously like anti-establishment. They fit into that, oh, these are like weird like privacy crackers that are like very not libertarian type of views, so that we can make them as an example. And it has worked, right? So all these other companies shuttering.
It did. And would you also agree that because the Samurai Wallet developers, they were not anonymous, right? They put themselves out there too, right?
Yes, that's right. But it has to also be understood that for now, the way that most people understand it, publishing code alone is still protected under free speech in the US. So if you just publish the code, you're probably safe. But once you start making money from like the privacy provision, then there's some, when you start hosting the infrastructure, even if you don't host the infrastructure, you host the front end, then that's when the government tries to say, you can develop privacy tech, you can publish the code, you just can't make a business out of it. And I think that seems to be the direction this current administration is going on.
That is fun, but that's funny you said that, because like when it comes to money, because in many cases, right, because in the United States, money would be also considered as a form of free speech, because especially like with these politician bureaucrats, because they raise money through all these super PACs and some other political stuff, so these donations are a form of free speech or something. So it's interesting how they interpret the definitions, or how they expand the meaning and stuff. So it is quite an interesting development. But I definitely see it as, I have to agree with you too. I just see these guys as trying to make an example out of these guys. And I guess also,
definitely,
libertarian like myself, like when we speak out, obviously our message is different, we stand out. So it shouldn't be a surprise that we would be easy targets or something. It is quite an interesting development to see with what happened to Samurai Wallet developers. Kind of sad to see local Monero go down, but I can understand, like, they're not ready for that kind of battle yet. Are there any other markets?
What, for Monero?
Or just privacy in general?
Are you talking about Monero or for...
In general?
Okay, the Monero's case is quite interesting. They are... like Monero's delistings, I think, came mainly because of MICA. And of course, US Department of Justice pressure on Binance as well. I guess the biggest news recently that was Monero was delisted from Binance. And that's actually not the only place they have been delisted. Like losing local Monero was a pretty huge blow for adoption. It was the go-to place to convert Monero to fiat, right? And I don't think Havana was ready. Serai DEX is still in testnet phase, right?
Okay.
And there's no real other DEX solutions, which is strange when you see a lot of these Monero guys like going, yeah, let's just move to DEXs. I'm like, you have no DEXs ready today. Yeah, maybe what's that other one called? BISC.
Yeah.
Which I have used BISC. Yeah. Let's face it. If you only had BISC, yeah, like the utility of Monero is going to be a lot less. And when I last used BISC, I don't know if the experience has improved, but it was not a great experience. So although I do think these solutions will, especially like Serai that's being developed by quite enormous personal risk because he's a US citizen. It's obviously meant to be a Monero swap thing, right?
Yeah.
It's his own chain. He has his own token, but he's not having any sort of initial allocation of token. But it's also, people may not realize that everything on Serai is also totally transparent. That means you can see all this. Because when you deposit your Monero in, you get like a wrapped Monero version on that to do all the AMM stuff, right? I think it's an important solution, but it does not solve. A lot of people don't know that, yeah, you're going to be giving up privacy while you're using Serai. It's not perfect, right? And Luke's doing great work. He's disclosing all of this. It's just like the best of a bad situation. But
yeah.
I think to kind of say that Monero doesn't need centralized exchanges, I think is a bit of BIM. And let's face it, like exchanges, a large centralized exchange has hundreds of millions of users. And that's how most currency users interact with blockchain. Yes, sad because it replicates the banking system, but it is the reality, right? And maybe you have 1 million on-chain users or something like that, right? And just a very rough estimate. Yeah, I'm a bit worried. I do respect obviously people say, yeah, they're strongly libertarian, they strongly give the finger to the government, but they also realistically, they also didn't have a choice, right? Not just on a messaging or ethos or philosophy standpoint, which obviously has a very big role in it, but also because the current technology that they are using in ring signatures, once you have like opt-in privacy for a ring signature model, the privacy doesn't do really well because with ring signatures, you only have very few people mixing together in a single transaction, 15 other input. When you make it non-mandatory, that privacy is really degraded. There was, I would say, no realistic expectation that Monero could comply. Maybe they could have done something with a more expanded view keys. And even right now, they couldn't do it because they are view keys. So a view key for the listeners allows you to, even though everything on the block is private, I give a view key and they can see, okay, incoming transactions or outgoing transactions. Currently, Monero in its current state only has incoming view keys. It doesn't have outgoing view keys. So it means that you only can see money coming in, but then because you can't see what's going out, you can't calculate the balance that is sitting in a particular address, right? Which obviously doesn't also satisfy all these new regulatory requirements or so. There are new proposals in the works that would enable this type of functionality. But yeah, just currently, don't pretend to say, we did it because, say, F you to go. Even if you wanted to, you couldn't do it. Which is, I really respect the approach to it, but what I don't appreciate was them calling other coins that managed to find a solution to stay listed on centralized exchanges as a sellout. And I think that's a real shame because if all privacy coins were removed from centralized exchanges, then the sector in itself would be dramatically diminished. And maybe some Monero guys were like, we're the only ones, we'll be the only ones standing. But I believe as a sector, we are all going to be hurt. And you, even as the leader in the sector, would also be hurt because there's no one else standing with you. So I think we should be like, I respect what Monero did. You should take that path because someone has to take that path. But don't go and shit on other people who've managed to find a way to stay listed on centralized exchanges because they keep privacy coins relevant in the mainstream. And as long as is not, well, not totally giving a backdoor to the exchange or the government. I think there is a balance to be had there. And yeah, we can probably talk about that later. But yeah, that's just something that's really been bugging me, because I think we shouldn't be fighting so much with ourselves. We are already under attack as entire sector, right? So unless we are a scam, right? Yeah, then no.
Yeah, no, I can. No, thank you for sharing that, because I can definitely relate to it. And just for the audience, just to remind them, I work for 3 centralized exchanges, so I'm well aware. And see that they also, because again, they're tethered to regulations and stuff, they have to comply. Okay, even like for example, like Kraken. Kraken is a great exchange. They have a great legal team, so they're able to in the United States keep Monero, but unfortunately, the UK they don't have. It's like a losing battle. It is not easy to keep privacy coins listed on exchanges and stuff, and it is a challenge. But again, like there has to be like some sort of a link with the mainstream or with regular people, just to give an idea that hey, privacy coins do exist, because most people have no clue. Most folks barely even know what Bitcoin is or Ethereum. And also to remind folks out there, like in terms of our crypto adoption, we're still around like a measly 5%, which is like nothing really. But on the other side too, this also presents a whole new opportunity for privacy projects to actually get together and support one another. And I think for me, one gripe I have with some of the guys at Monero or like maybe some of these other privacy folks or whatever is like they don't really actually like respect some of the marketing stuff or the communication stuff, like how to articulate that value. Like we tend to keep it within ourselves. And you're right, also with all the infighting going on, it's actually quite sad to see that. But I know but I do hope that there is a sort of like a wake-up call with the Samurai wallet developers getting arrested, Cash people getting arrested. Also Roger Ver too. Like that's also was a shocker too. And he's been an outspoken advocate for Bitcoin Jesus, and also for privacy too. Let's talk about Roger Ver, because I know you.
But before we go into that, I just wanted to bring this point up, and because it's just like a common misunderstanding, especially among people who talk about privacy. And obviously a lot of people tell Binance like Binance is against privacy. There are total shows for delisting Binance. It's great that we lost them, blah, blah, blah. But let me just quickly share my experience with them, right? As far as I can disclose, obviously. But
sure, please,
I think it's very important to put it in context. FIRO is only a $23 million market cap, which does maybe 1 million plus volume on Binance a day, right? Yeah. Now, they could just have easily delisted us. It's just a drop in the huge pool, right? Rather than trying to talk with us and discuss with us and all these things, it doesn't affect their bottom line. The easiest thing for them to do, because they already lost, if they have to delist Monero, that's the biggest market that they had. So what if they lose Zcash, FIRO, and PIVX or whatnot, right? They're so small in comparison, right?
But true,
so what actually happened was in September, Binance actually asked us to say that, are you planning to remove privacy? And we're like, no. And then they were like, okay, noted. And then we're like, wait, what is this? Obviously, we were worried, right? Because that means if we don't remove privacy, are we going to get delisted? And this was in September last year. And instead, I said, look, why don't tell me what your concerns are? And let's see if we can come up with a solution. And to their credit, they opened the line up. We had a good discussion, very frank discussion, and talked about, okay, like this new MiCA laws, how can we satisfy this and all of this? And Cash were also having separate conversations with them, but they weren't getting anywhere because they were talking about the use of view keys and all of that, which was going to be a lot of work on the exchange side. A lot of, like when you're dealing with 100 millions of users and you have to scan for every view key, and then you have to explain this to the regulators. Can you imagine, like from Binance's point of view, they're under the most regulatory pressure of all exchanges right now in scrutiny, right? You have regulators sitting in the exchange saying, is this okay or not? And then you're saying like, oh no, now I have to play with this view keys with privacy coin, which only forms a small portion of your bottom line, right? The easiest thing to do was just delist it all, which a lot of other exchanges did. OKX, they just delisted everybody, didn't say anything, no conversation whatsoever. But then to their credit, we proposed exchange addresses, which is a new type of address, which is a transparent address, but it would only accept transparent inputs. That means you cannot go from a shielded pool directly into an exchange thing, because basically the exchange needs to be able to say, I can see the transaction history of the user to satisfy the wording of the exception under MiCA. So what that means is that if it goes into a transparent address and then into an exchange, they can look at that transparent address and work with chain analysis providers and say, okay, let's put the risk score on this or something like that. So that satisfied their requirements. Basically, they have a transparent address. The chain analysis companies were happy to accept this new business. So whether it's like 100% effective, obviously, I think chain analysis is never meant to be 100% effective, but at least it gives some comfort to regulators. Okay, it's something we're comfortable with. It comes from a transparent address where we can see the history. It may be a totally new address, and we can also say that we've used chain analysis companies to cover our bases. And they accepted that. We implemented it, and we managed to stay listed for the moment. Obviously, regulations may change, but the fact that our solution was then Binance to Zcash, to PIVX, to all these other privacy coins who wanted to retain their privacy, and they adopted their form of it. So in a way, although I'm not particularly happy that we have to make this concession, but at the same time, I'm also very grateful to Binance to be able to talk and come up with something like this. And at the same time, it doesn't affect user-to-user privacy. And if you're going to be, my argument is that if you're going to be dealing with a centralized exchange anyway, you have less expectations of privacy, but it allows you to have that option. I can say that, hey, we actually save privacy coins on Binance because without this solution, everyone would have gotten delisted.
Yeah.
So on the one hand, very proud, but on the one hand, it's a bit of a compromise, but it is not a sellout, right? If you see it as we didn't sell out. And I think that's an important takeaway. And I just hope that people realize the realistic rather than just saying, oh, you must be a Fed. Oh, you sold out. I'm like, come on. If I manage to keep privacy coins on an exchange that controls 40, 50% or maybe even 60% of the market, I think that's a win.
Yeah.
So.
No, first of all, let me state this. First of all, thank you for your service. And you know what? A big shout out to Binance, because I worked at some other exchanges. So obviously, we saw Binance as a big competitor. But you're right, because like normally other exchanges and stuff. I used to work for BingX. So I remember last year they used to have Monero, but they just delisted it. They didn't talk to the Monero people. I don't know if they talked to the Zcash people. And I do remember like it just delisted. I'm like, wait, what? Like, and I just found out about it like maybe a month later or something. That's me working in BingX. So I'm just like, wait, what? So
yeah. Correct. Yeah. And it wasn't easy. Can you imagine that Binance has to change everyone's single deposit address? That means they have to change the infrastructure because to support this new exchange address system, right? So it's a lot of work on their part, and people shitting on them and saying that they are not supporters of privacy. Of course, maybe if they do this, then I'll change my tune. Yeah, screw Binance. I feel like they worked in good faith, and they did a lot of work for something that they didn't have to. So at least shout out to them for now. But yeah, it's hard also because you don't want to also like shouting this from the ceilings and then regulators are coming and oh my gosh, this is worrying. There is a balance, right? We comply, but we're not going to be like, bro. And then some crazy guy, Gensler or some politically goes, maybe I'm not so comfortable with this. Let's make new regulations or let's go after this thing. So it's a bit hard. Binance are also the unsung heroes in this case. And I just wanted to like take that. I'm not a supporter that everything that Binance does is good. Obviously, everyone has pros and cons, but when we were dealing with other exchanges, we tried to reach out to them and told them about Disney. They said, our market's too important. Some exchanges like, no, Korea says ban, even though it only affects Korea. We are banning all privacy coins just because the Korean regulators don't like. And so many other experiences we have with other exchanges. And from business point of view, it doesn't make sense for them to do it. So the fact that they did it anyway speaks a lot. So yeah, that's, I guess we can talk about Roger now. Yeah. It's very ironic because these privacy people are often like anti-establishment, anti-mainstream media, and they're like, oh, don't buy into the brainwash stuff. And then without realizing they're brainwashed too in a different direction, right? It's ridiculous. So yeah. I mean, obviously Roger was a seed investor in our project when it was Zcoin. He supported us in the early years. And I guess I met him a couple of times. Very pragmatic fellow. seller, but I think he's one of the few people really stuck to his guns even when it meant him losing money, right? Like it would have been so much easier for him to just get on the big bandwagon, don't talk about Coin Cash, and everyone was hating on him. And obviously he's emotional. I would say not emotional. He was a character that he wears a kind of his heart on his sleeve, right? So if you piss him off, he's gonna show you that he's pissed off. And unfortunately, that was taken advantage, painting him as this some loony fella and whatnot. But a lot of his arguments, I do agree. Coin was meant to be P2P cash, and for us who started earlier, even in 2012, it was really clear that Coin was meant to be money, not some digital, not some yes. So that what I found really weird was, first of all, he wasn't a US citizen for the longest period of time, and his alleged tax fraud and all of that was so many years ago, some of them like 10 years ago. And why now? Why only now you're going after him, which seems a bit weird given that this thing has been hanging around for so long, right? And obviously some people say that, oh, it's because he released his book, they went after him. That is possible, but it just seemed that they took so much effort to get him, right? Like they got him in Spain. It's not even in for a tax fraud case. And it's just, don't we have like bigger criminals to deal with? Definitely plan. Like you need coordination for that, right? Yeah. No, because the connection's a bit like choppy, so I sometimes interrupt you, sorry. But no, like I spoke to his A, and obviously it's a bit awkward to say, oh, how is he? Like, how good can you be when you're arrested? But he still has support, and I think his family office is still accepting messages from people who just want to share him something. And I think people should not underestimate the value of those messages, because while it may seem small, when you are, first of all, you're a rich guy traveling around and whatnot, and suddenly you get thrown into jail and then you isolate and all of that, hearing words of support, I think, does really help to keep the spirits up. So I think there's a Twitter thread somewhere. I guess you can link it when you find it. But then if you send some messages, I think he would appreciate that. I think that's the most that we can do at this point in time, obviously, because it's got nothing, technically, it doesn't have anything to do with privacy. It's got to do with tax stuff, which we are not privy to, right? But I do think that the witch hunt is real, right? And yeah, we're seeing really big boys coming into crypto, like the Black Rocks and all these things. And I think we just have to be mindful. I'm not saying that we shouldn't like, screw all of this and whatnot, but we have to still make sure that that people value what crypto was supposed to be, rather than this new paradigm. Like meme coins, I'm torn within them. Like on the one hand, I appreciate meme coins. I do think that's important for them to exist, but for them to be the main thing that is driving crypto reinforces the view that all of it is just a joke, which is not good for the space. And yeah, that's the only thing. Yeah. I mean, what has driven this cycle? It's been coins and ETFs and L2s. And most of them are centralized L2s, right? Which I'm like, yeah. Let's build basically, I don't know, it's just sometimes the L2s just seem to be like, we actually want to build a coin or Ethereum compatible, but we don't want to say we're against Ethereum. So let's just build an L2 and we're part of the Ethereum ecosystem, but we can have our own token and own ecosystem and own market makers. And it's okay. I guess there is some value to it, but it just seems everyone's just jumping from one L2 to the next. And even like some of the really promising projects that were seem to be tech heavy, but they turn out to be VC circuit jerks where they're giving airdrops to their own people or like very favorable vesting terms. And I'm like, man, we have strayed so far from the original idea. But at the same time, I can sit here and complain about it, or should we just embrace it? And I don't know, I'm caught in between, in the sense that I'm happy at what FIRO is doing. I really believe, despite also the risk to myself, but I also have to find ways to, I would say, expand with people like meme coins. Maybe we should. One thing that I kind of regret was that the rebrand to FIRO, I should have branded to what I actually designed as a April Fool's joke, which was to rebrand ourselves to Shiba with a SH, and we're like a privacy dog coin, and that would have done very well. I feel like that would have done so much better than trying to be serious and all of that. We actually have a funny blog post about Shiba and like sheep, and I feel that would be an interesting way to get mainstream traction while having real tech behind it. So I feel that was a bit of a missed opportunity, but yeah, I didn't know meme coin is gonna blow up so much. I always feel that a lot of these things, like I know some of the early, obviously Ordinal is not L2, but like a lot of these things that have been, I would say, capturing the mind share of Bitcoiners recently has been things that Ethereum has been doing for ages. And let's talk about smart contracts. Let's talk about NFT and stuff like that. But it's on Bitcoin, and therefore it's best. And I'm like, no, Bitcoin wasn't built to do these things. And obviously, you want to build an L2. There have been like side chains of Bit for a while, and like I feel like, yeah, I know side chains are different than L2s and stuff like that, but they kind of function the same-ish. And it's just because it's on Bitcoin doesn't mean that it can't be a scam as well. They still can be, like, people cheering on like Liquid, which is run by Blockstream, and and then saying this is the solution, and I'm like, it's fucking like a multi-sig behind it and all of that, and I'm like, what are you guys talking about? Like, if you want to be intellectually consistent, you should be also critical of stuff like Block as well, rather than shitting on Ethereum and all these other things. So I'm actually all for building more functionality of coin, right? Obviously, it's better that it's on the L2. It doesn't really affect like the main chain security and all of that. But at the same time, the thing that bugs me is the intellectual honesty there, right? Are you actually building anything cool? It's not really. It's just like something that is built on Bitcoin replicates Ethereum functionality, or the things that have already been built on Ethereum, right? When this is just my personal view. And if you were all about, Bitcoin should be ossified, that it should be digital gold, then don't build these things. But then I don't know, it's just that there's so much intellectual inconsistent when they were talking about the whole block size debate and saying that we should not increase the block size because we want to create the fee market, right? The fee market is so important for the long-term sustainability of coin, right? And then next thing, when auditors come by, which actually created the fee market, they're like, no, this is not good. And I'm like, okay, yeah. And I feel that another 2 halvings down the line, Bitcoiners are going to have to ask themselves, what are we going to keep to that 21 million limit? Do we have enough security? Because we cannot go up forever. Even if it's a Bitcoin maxi, it cannot keep on doubling every 4 years. Come on, it has to stop somewhere. And I feel like we are maybe like 2 halvings more before like Bitcoin like mainstream. Look, something as good as Go and whatnot, it's not like keeps on doubling. It just becomes a mainstream asset. And I feel that Bit's already with ETFs approved and all this thing. Like, what else is the next thing? And if that's the case, then what's going to happen to the security subsidy? Are you saying that fees are going to be okay? Do we still have a scaling solution for Bit? Lightning is still like a half-baked solution. And then, okay, which of them are not centralized, right? There are ways to build decentralized L2s, but they are very far and few in between. So I'm not totally, I may sound like I'm totally not hopeful, but I always feel that you're always going to come to shit solutions if you're not intellectually honest. So obviously Ethereum has a lot of problems. It's not perfect, but I feel that at least the leadership or the people guiding it are a lot more honest about what works or what cannot work. They may be wrong, but they are looking at it like, okay, this is a problem we have to solve, and it's not hiding the problems behind propaganda or some sort of religious of zeal, right? So that's my take, and I really look forward to the day that Ethereum takes over Bitcoin, if only for a while, just to wake coiners out to say, hey, this maxi shit is actually hurting your cause more because most people aren't maxis. And I think that's the same with Monero, right? Where you have this very large, small group of maxis that even the moderate people within the group are scared to speak out anything against the maxis because they don't want to be dealing with the drama. So I met many Monero people who actually think what we do is really interesting and they understand the compromise that we made. They think that is correct, but they're not going to say this in public because they don't want to get the flack from the maxis. But if that's the case, then it is the max that drive the culture. That's the maxis that drive the messaging. And that's also what happened to Big, where most people who use coin are not maxis, but because you have the loud, that anyone that's moderate who says anything beyond that is going to get targeted and shat on and whatnot, so that all you hear is the maxis and you're going to drive new people away. So that's just a point that intellectual honesty, I would say nuance takes on the thing may not be like headline headline grabbing, but they create a much more healthy community where people are willing to discuss things for what it is rather than hiding behind some religion or cult like status, which a lot of cryptos are. Yeah. I mean, like, you know, I'm a privacy specialist, right? So I don't pretend to be like an expert in all that is Web3, but I do hope that people, like, you know, realize the importance of privacy. And I think one of the really interesting trends that is going to be quite interesting quite soon is that a lot of like privacy projects like ourselves have been dabbling into something called privacy assets, right? Which is the ability to create your own assets in a privacy preserving way. So like, for example, FIRO, you know, we have something called Spark assets, which uses our Spark technology, but it means that assets are indistinguishable from each other. So like, you know, like how with Tornado Cash, you can still see USDC, it's USDT and all of that. In this case, because I think one of the big challenges with privacy coins is that beyond the usage of currency, which is obviously still very important, there lacks to be, you know, real world use cases as well. And one way to kind of jumpstart that is the kind of creation of privacy assets. That means you can have privacy NFTs, privacy stable coins, and all of that. And I'm really excited to see what that will open up. You know, Zcash is looking at it. Xeno is already having it with Ring CT technology. Ironfish and many other projects are looking into privacy assets and also building the bridges to allow the bridging between different assets. So it may turn out to be that, yes, you know, Ethereum, you know, will continue to be doing smart contracts and stuff and all of that with very little privacy. But then you have all these other privacy specific chains that would allow, I would say, you know, a privacy preserving ecosystem that you can like trade, you can, you know, create and do all these fun little things. You know, like NFTs are something that should not be underestimated just because they reach an audience that otherwise would not have been reached, right? And if there's a way to kind of show that you own ownership without having to, you know, show the exact like you can show the provenance, but not like when it has changed hands and things like that. I think there is value to that, and it's one of the very few things where it is a crypto native economy. So obviously we want real world use, but we should also look at crypto native applications, things that you can only do on the blockchain. So I'm really excited to see what people actually build from this, even from like privacy voting apps, privacy, you know, stable coins and artwork. So I'm quite hopeful on that. And hopefully, you know, with the recent steps that we have taken, we're going to see more regulatory clarity, and hopefully it's one that allows us to continue to build in privacy tech. In I guess, like, you know, without going to jail, but continuing to uphold the you know what the initial tenets of privacy are. So, you know, please continue championing for us. Please continue, you know, like bringing light to stuff that's happening with the Tornado Cash guys, which is like really unfortunate. And yeah, we have to keep fighting. And I do think that it is a fight that we can win, but it is one that we have to realize that privacy is an essential element of blockchain, and transparency is kind of like a side effect of blockchain, not that one that we actually want in your day-to-day transactions. So stop considering privacy coins as like, it's just a sub niche, because what we are kind of like, you know, there's this point to say like, oh, you know, first they went after this, then I kept silent. First they went, then they after that, then I kept silent. Then when they came after me, there was no one else to speak for me, right? So I think that's kind of very reminiscent of what's happening in the crypto space, and we are one of the frontliners protecting what crypto should be about. So, you know, even if you are like not into privacy coins or whatnot, you know, I think it's important to fight for the right to have privacy. So yeah, that's kind of my closing thoughts there. Yeah.